Today, I am especially pleased to introduce our keynote speaker because he is someone who has worked closely with us, both in his own legislature and as a leader of NCSL. Art Hamilton knows what it's like to survive and lead. One of 11 children, he grew up in public housing project in Phoenix. Undeterred, or perhaps better prepared, he was elected to the Arizona House of Representatives at the age of 21, and he served there for 26 years, 18 years as minority leader. He became president of the National Conference of State Legislatures in 1992 and just recently ended his tenure on the Foundation for State Legislatures Board of Directors. In 2008, the Arizona Republic named Art one of the 10 best legislators in modern Arizona history. Art now heads the Art Hamilton Group, a public affairs agency he founded 5 years ago that assists state, local, and national organizations in navigating political processes to move their organizations closer to their goals. He combines strategic thinking, tactical solutions, and trusted relationships to achieve concrete results. If you ask Art how he got there, he won't hesitate to talk about the important support he received from staff, not only for himself personally in helping to achieve his goals, but to the legislature as an institution in helping it sustain its values. There is no one more passionate about the legislature than Art Hamilton, and he is here today to share his insights on the critical role of staff in making the whole thing work, and also on how we might be able to make it better. Let's welcome Art.
Madam Staff Chair, thank you. Some of you must be having a reoccurring nightmare at this point. Having come through your legislative session, who do they invite to speak to you but a former legislator? It's okay. It'll get better, trust me. While I may be boring, I will be short and boring, which is rare for me. Before I begin, I'd like to take at least a couple of seconds and mention a man named Alan Rosenthal. You may have known him. He was with the Eagleton Institute of Politics at Rutgers University. Alan served state legislators and legislative staff for a very long time. He was there when I was a young boy, and you know that's a long time ago. We lost him recently, but no one in my service in government did more to push, to propel, and to support the work of legislative staff than Alan Rosenthal. And he, in fact, will be sorely missed. And even though he is no longer with us, from wherever he happens to be today, we ought to give him a little bit of a hand. One of the things that I wanted to mention was some of you, and it bothered me greatly when I came here, because people heard that I was from Arizona, and they were talking about how hot it is in my home. Well, the late Congressman Mo Udall from Arizona always said that the reason people complain about the heat in Arizona is because you have a bad attitude. The reality is everybody here thinks he or she is going to heaven. I've seen you all on the town of Atlanta a couple of nights, and let me tell you that not all of you are going to make it. If you don't make it to heaven, and I pray you do, but if you don't, when you get to that other place that you may be headed, for every summer day you've been in Phoenix, you'll be given credit for one day already served. Senator Moore, I used to think that everybody loved us as politicians. I truly believe that. But I was disabused of that notion a few weeks ago when my pastor called me at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I said, Pastor, why are you calling me? He said, well, Art, I just got a call from the police. They found a dead jackass on church property. I said, Pastor, I thought we paid you to bury the dead. He said, yes, but I also get paid to notify the next of kin. Sad. Georgia is an incredibly lovely place. Atlanta is a very urban, hip city. But I'm from Arizona. We're a bit more rustic and rural and maybe a little more slow to kind of get things going. And we have a tradition in our place of people doing things differently. One of my colleagues used to ride his bicycle all over his district because he was from a rural part of the state and didn't need a car. So the people got to refer to him as the bike riding rep. Well, one day a constituent saw the rep and he was walking. He thought that was strange, so he asked the representative, sir, why are you walking? He said, you know, I was out doing the work of the constituency. I was out trying to serve the people of the district, and someone stole my bike. Well, the constituent, being smarter than the representative, I know that's hard to believe, said, Mr. Representative, next time you get a chance to speak to an august group like this, put aside your prepared text and speak on the 10 Commandments. And when you get to the one that says, thou shalt not steal, whomever stole your bike will be convicted in his or her heart and return your bike to you. Well, Senator, they saw the rep about a week later, and he was riding his bike again. And he said, well, Mr. Representative, I see my plan worked. He said, yeah, it worked, but not the way you told me. You say, I was giving a speech to a group like this, and I put aside my prepared text, and I spoke on the 10 Commandments. But when I got to the one that says, thou shalt not commit adultery, I remember where I left my bike. That's hypocritical. That never happened. I'll stop this. After World War II, Sir Winston Churchill was invited to the dinner party of a very fancy English woman, Lady Anne. And Winston Churchill, as only he could, was attending the party. And as she came through the third time, she noticed that Sir Winston had been sipping on bourbon and branch water. And she said, you know, Sir Winston, you are drunk. You are very drunk. And Winston Churchill, as only he could, stood up and said, Lady Anne, you're right. I am drunk. But Lady Anne, you are ugly. You're very ugly. And come tomorrow morning, I will no longer be drunk. As I've traveled around the country talking to people about state legislatures, talking about the job that we do, the job that you and I do, people ask me, how do you feel about the places you visit? And my response is always the same. From time to time, we get a little drunk, but we've never been ugly. The reality is, as bad as things may have gotten on occasion, as bad as for some they may be today, the reality is we are an institution or institutions that serve the interest of the people who elect us. I'm always impressed with what's happened during my brief lifetime on the planet. Men have actually walked on the moon. We have rovers who go around on Mars. Women have finally begun to achieve and attain their proper place. Just beginning, though. And satellites make us a global village so small that what happens with the health of Nelson Mandela is instantly known by those of us in this country. But some things, much to my chagrin, have not changed. Babies are still hungry. The old are still afraid. And the poor are still too many. When I was a young legislator and I didn't understand, appreciate the benefit that staff brings to the process, I remember complaining once about what I wasn't being given in terms of information. And I told the staff, I want to see everything that's been produced on this issue that I'm concerned about in my office in 10 minutes. And they came in with 15 boxes of information, and they dumped them at my door. And I looked at them and finally figured out to say, Help? Because the reality is, as much as I thought I might have learned that moment I got elected, I knew so little, it was frightening. But I was blessed because I had the good fortune to be allowed to hire a woman named Mary O'Grady to be my legal counsel. Stole her from a law firm downtown. She sat in an office next to a woman you may have heard of named Janet Napolitano. Mary O'Grady not only served the legislature well, served me better than I could ever have hoped, but went on to spend 8 years as Solicitor General of Arizona, arguing our state's interest before the United States Supreme Court. She was legal counsel on our recent reapportionment program that was challenged in court and successfully defended the state of Arizona in those matters. Richard Travis, my chief of staff, who happily left my service because he said I was a bit strange, went on to become the deputy director of the Department of Transportation and now runs his own company successfully. Mike Fronsky, my health analyst, now helps to run the integrated healthcare system in Maricopa County, where over 70% of the people in my state live. Mark Bogart, who was my economist I hired, but he became the senior economist for the state legislature for both the Republicans and the Democrats. At the end of the day, I guess what I'm really saying is I learned the hard way, but the blessed way, that what you all do, what you bring to the table, is not just important. The staff chair was right. It's not just the backbone, it really is what holds the place together. In this era of term limits, where so many legislators come and go, the memory of why the place is important, the memory of what we've already resolved, the memory of what we know works and doesn't work, is often most resident with staff and not with members. I believe that what you do is important because at the end of the day, the place cannot run without you. When I was a young fellow and I was just beginning my job as a legislator, I thought that the one thing I could count on was that I became seasoned and an old gristle legislator. The luster of all those highfalutin ideas I brought to the Capitol would wear off. Well, as I now go into my Medicare year, I will tell you there is a greater danger, and that is that they don't wear off. The things I believed in then, I believe in now. The things I cared about then, I care about now. And the institution that I served in for almost half my life then, I still believe in now. And I believe in it not because it's important to me, but it's important to you and me and the people we serve. It's important for me to emphasize to you that we are a part of NCSL, the National Conference of State Legislatures. When this organization began, there was a desire to call this the National Conference of State Legislators. But the people then were smart enough to recognize that this was not about legislators. It was about the institution of the legislature. And the only way that works, and that could be served, is that we gave the kind of credit and proper place to staff that we do. Because at the end of the day, we share a common purpose, and that is to serve the folks in our respective states. The year that I was president of NCSL, I was blessed to have as my staff co-chair Donnie Schneider, who was clerk of the Senate in Wisconsin. We had 4 executive committee meetings my presidential year, and I made a decision that I would chair half those meetings. But I asked my friend Donnie Schneider if he would chair the other half. It was no idle gesture on my part. It was no act of magnanimity. It was merely a recognition that having served as long as I had come to recognize that we were in fact partners in this thing, and that there was no way in the world we could succeed if staff did not, and there was no way in the world they could succeed if we didn't give them their just and proper place in this, the institution of the legislature. I came here to serve, as I know you did, and I absolutely know today, beyond any shadow of a doubt, that you're not here for the money. Oh. The reality is, this is more than just a job. It is a calling to, and commitment to try to make this a better place, a more livable place. My dad, God rest his soul, was concerned that when I got elected, my head became so big I could never wear a hat again or walk directly into a door. So he gave me a poem which I didn't need, but Senator Moore, I came to read almost every day of my service. Now, I know you all are committed to what you do, and you don't need the poem, but humor me. Let me share it with you. It always does me good to get it out. Robert Raines wrote, "O Lord, make me discontent with things the way they are in the world and in my own life. Make me reject the tawdry deals. Make me uneasy with the undeserved flattery given and received, with my willing use of rights and privileges that others are unfairly denied. Teach me to care about the misfitted work, my brothers and sisters behind bars, the men, women, and children that we cram into institutions. Jar my complacence, expose my excuses, get me involved in the life of my community, and give me back my integrity once more." I believed that those words spoke to me then, and they speak to me now. They speak to me because we have much work yet to do. As difficult as these times are, and as unfulfilling as it may on occasion be, as thankless as it may sometimes be, what we are about is a noble, noble charge, an important business. People jokingly talk about the state legislatures being the 50 laboratories of democracy. And yet the reality is that is true, because so many of the things that have happened and are important in the success of this country didn't start in Washington, D.C. They started in Atlanta or Phoenix or Sacramento or Boston or Austin, and they percolated their way up. And somebody in D.C. grabbed onto them, called it their own new idea, and ran with it. That's okay, because we don't have to be concerned about who gets credit so long as the work gets done. I would urge you, no matter how difficult the struggle, to recommit yourselves this day to the service of the legislature, to serving the folks in your states, and to help make those folks who get elected not only better than they are, but give them the real tools and support they need to do the job of serving the people of your respective states. When I was thinking about what to share with you, I thought about the story of the legislator who was out walking one day and he fell into a 20-foot hole, a deep hole with very slick sides, so slick that he couldn't get his way out. He had no idea what to do. Well, a colleague walked by and threw him a 10-foot rope. He figured the other guy would have to at least climb 10 feet to deserve to get out. Didn't help at all. A lobbyist came by and saw him in this 20-foot hole and threw him a 40-foot rope. But when he grabbed it, he found the lobbyist had become preoccupied with something else and dropped his end. A legislative staffer came by and looked down and said, "Mr. Representative, is that you in the hole?" He said, "Yes." And the staffer jumped down in the hole with him. The member told the staffer, "You know, I appreciate the gesture, but that was pretty stupid. Now we're both in the hole." The staffer said, "Yes, Mr. Representative, but I've been down here before, and I know the way out." The job that you do is that in so many cases, you've been down there before. You know the way out. And yet there are people who come in and get elected and who theoretically have all of this power and don't. Part of what you do is helping them to figure out how to get out of the holes they find themselves in, even if they don't know that they need that kind of help. When John Kennedy became president of these United States, and I was actually young then, I remember he talked about what was required to move a democracy forward. He said, "Now the trumpet summons us again, not a call to battle, though in battle we are, not a call to bear arms, the arms we may need, but a call to bear the long twilight struggle, year in, year out, rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, but a struggle against the common enemies of mankind, tyranny, poverty, disease, and war itself." I understand that times are hard. I understand your jobs are tough. I understand sometimes you just don't feel as if you're getting as much back as you're putting in. But the value is in the work. People who will never get a chance to know you because you don't necessarily make the papers will benefit time and time again from the service you provide. As difficult as times may be, what was true when I was in a legislature is still true today. Someone said the strength, the energy, and the zeal that we bring to meeting the challenges of our day can spark our lives and the lives of the people we touch. And those sparks pressed together can become a flame, and the glow from that fire can one day light the world. People don't come here just for what we think we have to give, but they come here because they see a light on a hill, a light that is provided by the sparks that you bring to the table, sparks that you help to ignite. The belief that we are capable of self-governance, capable of addressing problems, capable of making this a better place for all the folks who live here. John Kennedy, when he gave his inaugural address, ended his inaugural address this way. He said that history would be the final judge of our deeds, and a clear conscience our only sure reward. But let us go forth. Let us go forth and lead this land we love, asking God's help, seeking his blessing, but knowing this: here on earth, God's work must truly be our own. It is to that high calling you have yielded thus far your lives and your service. It is to that high calling that you have given and hopefully will give again. I am here because I not only admire what you do, I not only believe in what you do, but I know without any question, without a shadow of a doubt, that the institutions that I love so much cannot prosper, cannot do the job they're required to do without your input, without your service, and without your selfless sacrifice to make this place for not just this generation, but for the next and the next and the next. That place on a hill, that light on a hill that the world sees with all of our faults and frailties and gravitates to, because we are still, in my humble judgment, the best hope for a world in need of light. God bless you. God bless your states. God bless these United States of America.